Hi, everyone. This is Marilyn Bradford, and I would like to welcome you to my Left Turn podcast. What is your left turn? Writing a blog, parenting in a different way, letting go of the old because you are aware of something greater. Left turns are choices we can all make. It's about a willingness to step into the unknown in any area of your life, to trust yourself, to risk creating or trying something new. It's about letting your true uniqueness shine. The greatest people who have lived, artists, statesmen, writers, explorers, musicians, have all been people willing to turn left. What capacities do you have that you have not acknowledged? What would your life and the world be like if you were willing to turn left? Welcome, everyone, to this edition of the Left Turn podcast. I have a very remarkable woman with me today, Robyn Vogel. She's a certified facilitator with Access Consciousness. She's also known for providing trauma-informed, heart-centered solutions designed to expand the spirit and heal the past. Robyn offers hope, genuine human connection, and inner transformation. Seemingly stuck patterns and wounds from the past can find resolution and peace. She does retreats, workshops, classes, has helped thousands of people. So welcome, Robyn.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here.
I'm so glad. Well, I know you've had a lot of left turns in your life. What are some of the ones that have created the greatest for you?
Such a great question. I love the concept of left turns. When I think about the left turns in my own life, I would say that the first big left turn I took was to step into a graduate program, a second graduate program. So I did something people don't usually do, which is a left turn, right? I went to college, I went to graduate school, I started my job, and then I stopped my job. That actually was a big left turn. I stopped working for sort of corporate America because I knew that I could do it myself. And I knew that I could work less hours and make more money. And I was only like 24 years old at the time. And I remember talking to my district manager and, telling him that. And he was, of course, in maybe his 40s or 50s. And he looked at me like I had 8 heads attached to my body and was like, "You're leaving, without a job?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And I left. That was the first big left turn. And I was right. I worked 20 hours a week instead of 50. And I made the same money or more that I was making at the time. And I had a lot more time and space. And I had, agency over my work. And it was, so I became an entrepreneur like very, very young. And then I did something, it was amazing. It was a lot of fun and very flexible and really opened a lot of space for me. The next left turn I did after doing that for a little while was I went back to get a second master's degree. And I changed the course of my life, my career, to focus more on the inside, the internal self, which I knew that was coming. And that actually led me to a lot of left turns, led me away from more of a traditional path of work. Even as a psychotherapist, which I know both of us have in common, I was working as a traditional psychotherapist, 50-minute hours and the whole thing, taking insurance. And I started doing other things like firewalking and sweat lodges and really connecting to other traditions and other healing modalities. And that brought me away from the traditional psychotherapy model. I took a lot of left turns after that.
That's really interesting. I would love to know what you got out of some of those alternative modes. I've never wanted to do firewalking because I'm afraid of burning my feet.
Yes, most people are.
I know.
I was terrified, by the way. I was terrified, but I knew that I had to do it. I was absolutely terrified. In the group of 24 women that I was with, I was, I think, the last person to walk because I was so afraid. And I got so much out of it. One of the things I learned right at the beginning of the line where you then step onto the fire, I stood there waiting for a long time. And what I was waiting for was not to be afraid.
Ah,
And I was waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And everybody was patient. There was no rush, all the space in the world. And when I said out loud, I'm still afraid, the woman who was leading this and created this ceremony said, that's the point.
wow. That's incredible. We
Yeah.
used to think of left turns as, well, I just knew to do this, and that's true. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't take courage sometimes, or that we're afraid, or that we're jumping off the cliff. All of those things often go with left turns. So I'm so glad you described that.
Yeah, as soon as she said that's the point, like you're afraid and I invite you to step anyway, it
Yes.
all changed and I stepped onto the hot fire and the first step was not hot at all. I walked across the flaming blue, very hot coals, got to the other side, didn't burn my feet, and learned so much about what is possible in this world. I mean, some people think when they think about a firewalk, oh, well, it's not hot, it just
Oh,
looks
no,
hot.
no.
No, it's hot. It's really hot. It's actual flames and fire. But it taught me so much about, first of all, the fear piece that I just, described. And second of all, that like what's possible beyond our physical bodies. I mean, our physical bodies you touch a hot stove and your finger is going to get burned. But when you
Right.
prepare yourself and the vibration and you look at the energy and you look at what's happening in a much greater space in the spiritual realm as well, like so much is possible, and walking across hot flames is one of them without
That's
getting burned.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yes.
So powerful. So powerful.
What would you say to someone who wanted to do, I know we're kind of going into this, but I think
Yeah.
it's really um, informative and helpful. What would you say to someone who says, well, I'd like to do a fire walk, but I'm afraid? What would you say to them? Like a
I would
client,
say like a what?
said that
Yeah,
to
like
me.
a client, sure. Well, one of the things is, that first lesson around feeling fear and still being able to have courage at the same time. Like
Yes.
we can feel afraid of many, many things, but that's not the point, really. Feeling
Right.
fear it's an energy. It exists.
Right.
We can follow it down the rabbit hole, and sometimes we do, and we end up in a rabbit hole. We can also say, okay, that's an energy. There are other energies. And another energy is courage, and another energy is curiosity. Like, well, what is it like to walk on a fire, and what will happen? And
Yes.
what's on the other side? Like, how much empowerment is there on the other side? I will say for me, a huge amount.
Yes.
So that's what I would say. Now, there are people that don't want to walk on fire,
No,
but
of
a
course.
fire walk is also a metaphor.
Yes,
Right?
exactly. Exactly. For everything in our lives. And we're
Everything.
all going to approach the coals of something at some point.
Yes.
And it's really, what do we do with that?
Mm-hmm.
Do we go
Exactly.
forward, or do we go back, or do we
What
create our little shell?
Yes, yes, it's all about making choices. I was
Yeah.
telling a story to a group that I was leading a weekend retreat with, and I used the story of the firewalk as a metaphor. I told the story, but I brought in a different aspect of my life. And basically, when you're standing at the edge of a fire or a fire walk, you have a choice. You can walk, you can turn around, you could take a left turn, you could choose to step forward. And that space of waiting and just kind of waiting in fear, that's a difficult space to be in. And
Yes.
so we were able to look at, how do you make choices and feel courageous and confident in making them, or make them
That's,
anyway, even if you don't feel courageous and confident, and see what happens.
and see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that curiosity is such a big part of life for those
Yes.
who have a bigger life. Okay, wonder what that is. Wonder what that is. All right.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
Oh, that sounds great. Okay, what are some of the other left turns that you found yourself taking that really created a lot for you?
Mm. My next vulnerable share about left turns has to do with actually leaving the relationship and the marriage that I was in.
Wow.
Yeah, which was a big left turn. I had already had two kids. We had already had two children together. They were pretty young. Um, and I knew I had to take a left turn because I was, I'll say, down a rabbit hole that had me feeling stuck and not like myself.
Uh-huh.
And I made decisions early on in my life, and that's what we do sometimes.
Huh.
Not right, wrong, not good or bad. It's just that, as we sort of chip away at the places in ourselves that aren't our true selves,
Yeah.
our infinite divine selves, we see there are other options and possibilities that are more aligned. And so the big left turn was shifting to being married, to being co-parents, which we've done an amazing job at. I think that was a big left turn for me as well. Like, we live half a mile apart still, even though our
Uh-huh.
youngest is 21 now. But we're still co-parenting in many ways. And we've had a really strong commitment, which is also a left turn. Like, a lot of people just won't choose that. Um,
Right.
but I
Right.
chose it. I chose,
Yeah, I know another couple in Access who did that, and it's
yeah,
a huge left turn.
it's
They
a huge
remained
left turn.
friends and never spoke badly of each other, and
Same.
the kids did well.
Yeah, they'll go through what they'll go through, just
Yes.
having, two separate families and two parents that are separate from each other. But they've also been with us together often, like many, many, many times over 20 years
Yeah.
since we've separated since then. So that was a huge left turn, and I really took a strong. He did too, but I took a very strong like leadership role in that, like just knowing that this was the right choice.
Yeah.
And it was the right choice for me to make the left turn out of the marriage because I became so much more of who I am. And
Yes.
I'm not a traditional white picket.
Anything.
I'm not a traditional anything. It's true. No, I'm really not a traditional anything. So this has allowed me so much freedom to be curious and to choose for myself where I feel most aligned over many years.
That's wonderful, truly. And so much about the left turns, it's that society places all of these right paths for us, like getting married and having kids and staying married. All these people have been married for 50 years. Well, that's great for some people, but not for others. This whole idea that a relationship needs to be long term is really part of this realities, rules, regulations, whatever you want to call them.
Hmm.
I once talked with a therapist. He's like, "Well, I judge people by how how many years they've had the same friends." It's like, nobody's changing.
Right. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. No, the capacity to pay attention and follow the energy and learn something new and stay curious to
Get
me.
curious. It's amazing.
So,
Okay, let's go forward
yeah.
again.
Yes.
Other ones that you could tell us about, other left turns?
Other left turns. I think well, yes, I did something else. I did many things, but I had a license.
I don't doubt it.
Yeah. I had a license as a mental health counselor, as a master's,
Yeah.
that was the way I did my degree in psychotherapy and counseling. And a couple of years ago, I think maybe when I started actually working with access consciousness and learning so many tools and using so many tools that were so potent and powerful for me, I let go of my license.
Hmm.
Nobody does
We
that.
have a lot of parallels, Robyn.
I know.
Okay.
It's like nobody does that. Hardly
Yeah.
does that. I let go of my license. And I'm so glad I did because there was like this hook to do things in a certain way. And the truth is, I wasn't doing them. Don't tell anybody who's listening, but I wasn't doing them anyway. So then
Yes.
there was just constantly this energy of like wrongness.
Oh, wow.
And I
Yes.
was like, okay, I don't need that in my field. I don't need that in my life. So I let go of the license, and now, and I still practice, and I have a wonderful practice.
Uh-huh.
Um, my business is called Come Back to Love, and I see couples, and I have a small private practice, and I do a lot of more teaching classes and workshops, as you
Uh-huh.
said. And then now I get to bring in all of the tools, like some of the good psychotherapy tools that I've learned, and the access tools and the shamanism tools I've learned and practiced over many years, and just from all places. And so, I get to bring my full self. I just get to bring me, and nothing else really matters, because if people
Yeah.
want this version of support, then they'll come and hang around me. And if they don't, they'll do something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's choice. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Choice. You bring up a really good point with both the marriage and the letting go of your license, which is there isn't a lot in this reality that humanoids or people like you and myself um, can really do without feeling squished and squashed and ultimately going, no, this doesn't work. Now, I know a few wonderful marriages, but that's each of the people are growing all the time, and they support the growth and they support the change. And if you want to go off and do something, that's fine. But so many of things like, yeah, I mean, I was a clinical social worker, and when I went to renew my license, it was like, I'm not gonna do these 30 hours of stuff anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah. you know I
Exactly.
get I get it. Well, it
And
sounds like you've really created enormously for yourself. Tell us more about your life and what's going on. And
thanks. Yeah. I'm bringing Come Back to Love to a bigger stage right now. It's been my business for 20 years. And I'm just about to start a radio show, which I'm very excited about. Looking
great.
forward to having you on my show.
Oh, I'll be happy to.
Yeah, and I had a vision in 2014 that I was standing on a stage
Uh-huh.
outside,
Uh-huh.
um, a huge stage with lots of people in the space, in the
Uh-huh.
audience, lots and lots of people outside. And I've been curious about that vision for 10 years now.
Yes. Wow.
And I don't know if it's a literal stage, or maybe if this is a metaphorical stage. I feel like stepping onto this next stage of a radio
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
host feels like part of it. And my just like what's in my heart is to bring as much love into the world from the inside out, obviously, as possible. And so I spend a lot of my time writing and speaking and teaching, and also using our tools and access, energy pulls and other things to clear the obstacles in my own path, which of course there are, because there are.
Yeah,
And
because that's life.
that's life,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, but it brings me so much joy. I feel so blessed and grateful to be where I am. And I spent a lot of time in my 20s and 30s and 40s also, like, finding that most aligned place. And I
Yes.
feel so happy to, not that there's more, of course there's always more, but I feel really happy to be here.
So what would you do if a client asks, if they say, I don't know how to find myself? I don't,
Mm,
how would you work with that? Giving
that's a
our listeners a few little tips here.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I don't know how to find myself is such a big question. And I know it was the question I was asking myself. In retrospect, well, I have two pieces actually. In retrospect, patience and 10-second increments, keeping, just coming back to this moment.
Yes.
What do I desire right now in this moment? What do I require? What am I curious about? Like, it can be very overwhelming to ask very big questions. And it can be wonderful to ask very big questions.
Yeah.
The other piece I want to share is an exercise that I did that changed my life. And it's from a book called Strengths Finder 2.0. Strengths Finder 2.0. I don't remember the author. And in the book, it invites this exercise that I used. And the exercise is open up a page, put at the top, like, what's my purpose? Or, how do I find myself? Whatever your question is in that realm. And then write kind of stream of consciousness nonstop until you cry.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's amazing. And when you cry, stop. And that's your thing. That's your thing. That's your purpose. That's why you're here. I have the chills actually talking about it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, right. It's so powerful. I wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote until I wrote, I want to create more love in the world. That was my language at the time. Create more love in the world. Now I know we don't have to create it. It's already present in there. Here. But when I got to that line, I started weeping. And I was like, okay.
Okay.
That's why I'm here.
Try that. That's a great, I mean, we can always find more.
Always. Yes. Always. Yeah.
A great exercise. Wow.
Yeah, highly recommend it. And I recommend that to my clients often, when they're in that space of feeling stuck. Well,
thank you so much, Robyn. This has been really informative and fun and interesting. And I can see you on that stage with all of those people.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me here and also for envisioning me on that stage.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much for joining this episode of Left Turn. I wonder what embracing left turns could create in your life. What magical possibilities might show up. Remember, when you choose left turns, you are joining a group of the most creative and brilliant people the world has ever known.